Hi, welcome back to part 2 of the holiday special. Alright, so up next is Black Christmas, the remake from 2006. And the first Black Christmas I put out last night, I just felt like I was in an audio-only podcast mood, so it was a podcast episode. So this is still part 2, but I felt more in a video mood, so it's video part 2. But I'll say this right off the bat, this movie gets way too much shit. Way too much shit. It's not that bad. Like, I can enjoy myself watching this movie, and this is another film that I watch usually every December. Not as faithfully as the original, but you have Michelle Trachtenberg in here, who I grew up with. I mean, I was her age when she was doing like Harriet the Spy and stuff on Nickelodeon. You have Katie Cassidy, you have Oliver Hudson, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who has done some great things in movies in that time period, and I haven't really seen her since. So the cast is fun in this movie, and there's some good acting in this film. Even if, you know, it's a little hammy, and this movie has a lot of plot holes, it doesn't feel like the original Black Christmas in any way. It just feels like it took the outline of the story for the original Black Christmas and made it in a 2000s slasher holiday fashion. That with a whole bunch of homages and expanding upon Billy's backstory, and we actually see Agnes in this movie too, and we get a whole backstory that if I remember right, I'm gonna guess here, but Billy was raped by his mom, right? And that's how he had Agnes, so Agnes is both his sister and his daughter. So, I mean, some of the backstory that they expand on Billy is not great at all. Some is okay, though. So, I mean, this movie does get a lot of unnecessary hate. It does get a lot of shit, and it deserves it, because this movie's hella stupid in a lot of ways. We'll be dissecting dumbass shit in this movie, but it does have charm to it. It does have good actresses in it and actors, and it's very Christmassy. Same as Black Christmas 74. You feel Christmas just radiating from this movie. I actually think the aesthetic might be a little better in this movie than in the original. Let's get into Black Christmas from 2006. This will be fun. Oh, and that's right, we have the actress, I forget her name, Martin, Andrea Martin, that might be it, who played Phil, the not-so-great-looking sorority girl in the original film. And she plays Miss Mac, the house mother, in this one, which, of course she does. That's so fitting. This is also written and directed by Glen Morgan, who used to write a lot of episodes with James Wong for The X-Files, and then went on to, I think he wrote some of the story or some of the screenplay with Jeffrey Reddick and James Wong for Final Destination. And he also did the remake of Willard a few years before this, I think. So the directing's alright in this movie. It's not anything great, and like I said, there's a lot of stupid stuff in here, but he was well established. But I think the studio caused a lot of issues and fought with Glen Morgan, and James Wong, I think, produced this, who directed Final Destination. And there was like a real troubled production, and there's another cut of it, like a European cut, that has more gore in it. I don't know if I ever saw that version. I think I'm just used to the regular, whatever, theatrical cut ever since this movie came out. So I wonder if I can find that somewhere online, the European cut of this movie. But yeah, it seems like there was a lot of back and forth between them and the studios, and it absolutely shows with a lot of the flaws in this movie. So I like the intro sequence to this movie. It's basically the first kill of the original film with the iconic, strangulation with the plastic, except we see her go into the closet and they give you a little psych out, you thinking that it's going to go the same way as the original, and she ends up turning around because she doesn't see anything. For some reason, I don't know, this chick's stupid. She turns around, she sits back down, then you see a figure lurking behind her, and she goes to grab the corkscrew for the wine, and it's not there. And then a bag gets shoved over her head and she's strangled. Then she gets stabbed in the eye, and then it's just Black Christmas title card. Cool intro. But then we go to the mental institution before that happens. And this is where we meet Billy, and we find out this whole backstory that he killed his mother and his mother's lover on Christmas 15 years ago, and then he escapes from here. Yeah, so it's stupid. I made my mind up this time. You have the security guard at the psychiatric hospital that Billy's locked up in, and he's all yellow, Simpson-y, because he has a liver disease, so causes jaundice. And they have just a padlock on his cell, and there's a guy dressed as Santa, and he's telling him the backstory, and he says, oh, I heard about him, he murdered his family on Christmas when I was a kid. And the guard tells him he tries to escape every year, and yet he's able to escape this time because what? They should have him watched 24/7 by like 6 guards at all times throughout the night if they know that he tries breaking out every Christmas. But they're catering to him. They put a padlock on his cell just because that's what his mother used to do to him. And it explains the attic obsession with Billy. His mom locked him in the attic with a padlock. They try to make him feel like he's at home. That's the key with Billy Lenz. You gotta treat him like he's home. Who cares? He's a fucking murderer. He's in a mental institution. They go that far to cater to this one guy that they just put one little padlock on his door, and then they bring him cookies that are made of chicken because it's the closest that it tastes to the cookies that's right. He made cookies out of his dead mom's back 15 years ago when he killed her and her lover. They go out of their way to make chicken cookies for this guy. Come on, all of that is fucking stupid. Then we cut to Delta Alpha Kappa is the sorority name. DAC. We're going with that shit. I'm not saying those 3 words every time. But Lacey Chabert from a whole bunch of stuff, but Gretchen from Mean Girls, she's in this too. I forgot about that. So, I mean, the cast is great here. And we cut to them, and they're all sitting around, and this movie is so Christmassy. I mean, this is like 10 times the Christmas as the original, in my opinion. Not saying it does it better or worse. It's just so much more. Like, these girls went all out. With the lights, with the Christmas tree, with the ornaments everywhere. And then I remember a lot of the kills are very Christmas oriented. Like at the end, Billy, I think, impales himself. He falls onto a tree. So there's a lot of Christmas. It could be a little overload at times, but for the most part, I enjoy it. And their dialogue is funny. Like, there's some fun dialogue in this movie, and a lot of it has to do with, they're all hot-ass chicks from this time period that were really big stars at the time, and they're just sitting around bullshitting and looking great. Also, I think it's because there's so much Christmas music playing, too, throughout this movie. And one thing I do love about this film is that it uses Dance of the Sugar Plum Fairies. That's what it is, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That classical piece, they use it throughout this movie. And I think they use it to excellent effect. But there's a lot of other popular Christmas songs playing at the beginning of this movie and throughout it. Like Jingle All the Way. And it opens up with whatever other shit Christmas song that there is. But you hear a lot more Christmas songs. So it like I said, it could be overload at times. But if you're in the mood for like a real Christmas horror film, this might be a better pick than the original. However, let me clarify, if you want a better movie in every way almost, you do not want to pick this one over Bob Clark's original. A lot of it also has to do with the Christmas lights throughout the house constantly blink green and red. So there's a constant green and red, like strobe effect almost, throughout every shot of this movie that's in the house, basically. I forget maybe if the power goes off or something, but besides that, I mean, it's not bad. Actually, it's pretty enjoyable. So let me tell you about some of these DAC members. We have Kelly, who's played by Katie Cassidy. She's like the Jess / Olivia Hussey version of the original in this film. Then we have Michelle Trachtenberg, who plays Melissa. I'm pretty sure, because I remembered MM. Whatever. Lacey plays Dana. Mary Elizabeth Winstead is Heather. And someone plays Megan, but Megan's in a room, and she doesn't want to come out because she is like hysterical because she's watching a video of her boyfriend fucking some other woman, and she just says fuck Christmas, and she doesn't want to leave her room. She's distraught. Then we flash back to the sanitarium where Billy's rocking in a rocking chair. Nice little homage. Like, there's a ton of homages to Bob Clark's original, which I think that makes it fun too. This is a much more fun movie, in my opinion, than the masterfully made, on like technical levels as well, original film, if that makes sense. But he's rocking in his rocking chair, and he has candy cane, and he's sucking on the end to make it sharp. I remember this, right? He ends up stabbing this dude in the eye with a candy cane, and that's how he kills him. That's what I mean. This is the camp, the 2000s camp, which does exist, you know, of this movie. You get a lot of that. That's ridiculous, but that's how he gets out. But this guy, like I said, he says that he tries to escape every Christmas so he can be home for Christmas. And it's just this one guy that's on patrol, and then he leaves him alone. He goes into the cell when he doesn't see him there, which he should know immediately. He's trying to escape because he's done it every year for the last 15 years. All right, it's not that big of a deal, but it really bothers me. And this is also why it bothers me even more, because he gives him a warning. He goes to check on him, and then on a piece of paper or gift wrap, whatever the hell it is, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they gave him present, gift wrap, just to make it feel Christmassy for this murderer. But the guard reads it, and it says, I'll be home for Christmas. And then he says, in your dream, Billy, in your dream. He's a black guy. Doesn't matter, just felt like I had to fill you in if you haven't seen it in a while. Why is he talking like that? But I've never heard anyone say that in my life. It's in your dreams. It should be in your dreams, Billy, in your dreams, not in your dream. That's so strange. I've never heard that. Let me know if somebody's heard that. And this has nothing to do with anything, but I'm interested. Dance to the Sugar Plum Fairy. I said fairies earlier. I was 99% there, so let's continue. But it's used throughout this whole movie. I love that composition, first of all. And it's an eerie piece of music when you put it in this context. So it really works. So then you got Megan, because it keeps flashing back and forth. I guess, right? Or is it Agnes doing this? It could be Agnes who's killing them at the beginning here, because that sounds very familiar. But Megan goes up into the attic because she hears the music box playing Dance to the Sugar Plum Fairy. We get a cool kill here. Like, I think this looks pretty good. We get the iconic shot recreated much, much worse in almost every way. Claire is her name also, as an homage to the original character. But with the bag on her head, but it's not clear, you know, so you can't see Claire. It's like a dark, opaque bag. So all you see is like the mouth hole, like, you know, the part that goes in the mouth a bit, and you know the mouth is open and it rocks back and forth, and it lasts for 2 seconds. So I mean, it's cool, but it's pointless. But then Megan gets the bag shoved over her head and gets stabbed repeatedly with something. It might be the unicorn, the glass unicorn, or doesn't know. A friend gives that to one of the characters later on as a Christmas present. Whatever it is, it's sharp as shit. Starts stabbing her through the bag, and then he takes his thumb to her eye and like gouges her eye, but you don't really see anything, but it's vicious. Like, it's a brutal kill. So I enjoy that. And then Billy makes his escape. I don't even know what happens. This is probably where that European cut would come in handy. All I could tell you is Billy creeps up behind the guy dressed like Santa. There's just an explosion of blood, like a shot of blood hitting the ground. And then it cuts to the next scene. And he's dressed like Santa with the sack, Billy, and he's walking right out of this place. That's how he gets out of it. It's written terribly. That's right. It is Agnes who's killing pretty much the majority of them until like the reveal of this movie. I remember now. It's actually a decent reveal, even though I don't care for seeing Agnes or anything like that in this movie. It's supposed to be Black Christmas remake, but there's been worse. But we're not talking about that movie. Sorry, Ginger, because it'll just make me pissed. Because they do a good job of tricking you into looking at this movie like it's jumping back and forth. You see some woman get murdered, and then it goes back to the sanitarium, and then you see Billy for a bit, and it makes you think that it's jumping back and forth, and this is after he escaped, and then you find out that it's Agnes later on. So they pull off a twist I don't care for very well, I guess is the point I'm trying to make. So the girls at DAC, they're all rocking around the Christmas tree, and then they start talking about Billy, and it is this movie. I was misremembering when I was watching and recording about the original last night if they mentioned that Billy lived in that house, but no, it was in this that they bring that up, because there's no backstory on Billy. Even though where they go with this whole scene, this goes on for a while. We go on this whole flashback, and Miss Mac explains his whole backstory, and that he didn't break into this house all those years ago. He lived here. We go into his childhood, and his mother is a bitch, like a total bitch. And she says Santa got shot down by the Russians. He's not getting any gifts, and Santa's dead. And he's just this yellow Simpson kid trying to live a good life and to be happy. And his father is a good guy. He says to him, go upstairs, there's a present for you, and it's a present from Santa. That's cute. I like all the backstory on him, you know, his childhood. And then he ends up seeing his mom. Well, he hears it. He doesn't really see it, but he sees like the aftermath for like a second, and then gets chased up into the attic. But the mom kills her husband, the father, and her lover, because he finds out that she was fucking some other dude. He comes over, and the two of them are burying the body, like, under the house. And he witnesses this, and the mom chases him up to the attic, and then puts the padlock on it, and he's just locked up there, like, for years. All of that is fine as his backstory. I enjoy most of that. I also like that Agnes is a character and is expanded upon. I just don't like the fact that she's like the primary killer almost in this movie. And I don't like the idea of her killing people. I would have just liked maybe seeing her and having a reveal that she's still alive or some shit. But not to the point that she takes over as like the Billy of this movie. She's like the focus. That's the whole twist of this movie. That I don't care for. But the whole incest thing with the mom, years later, he's locked up in that attic. She goes up and rapes Billy because she wants to have a kid. And that's how Agnes was born. So as weird as it is, I'm fine with that part of the backstory too. And I think it would have been better if that's all we heard of Agnes. And we just got more backstory on the character that we heard about through Billy and his demented fucking voices in the original. And I noticed while editing the episode of the original last night that one of the phone calls Billy makes, he says, I know you molested Billy. So that was already hinted at in the original. So it makes sense, you know, that she raped Billy and Agnes was the kid. So I mean, all of it fits. So it's not too much of a stretch. I just don't like how far they went with Agnes. So then we see Eve, one of the ugly girls at the sorority, give the glass unicorn as a present to, I have no idea the character's name, Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, Heather. There you go. So a nice little nod there too. I thought of the perfect analogy for this movie compared to Bob Clark's original film, it's like the remake of Mother's Day from the 2000s, 2009, 2010, something like that. How that film feels and how it has that late 2000s, mid 2000s camp feel to it. They're both missing the disturbing, creepy atmosphere throughout both of those movies, and just the raw feeling of them and the look of them. They're way too polished. That remake of Mother's Day is to the original Mother's Day like this Black Christmas is to Bob Clark's version. Then finally the phone fucking rings, because that's one staple of the original, is the phone ringing constantly through that movie. You get one phone call finally, like a half hour into this movie, and it's terrible. It's so bad compared to the eerie, creepy, like excellently done and mixed sounds of Billy's voice from the original. It is so bad in this versus that. And they see that the call came from Megan's cell phone. So they go up to her room, but she got killed up in the attic earlier. And Kyle, the boyfriend of Kelly, comes in. And now I'm misremembering, was Megan watching her own video of her getting fucked by Kyle? It looked like a blonde, so it looked like Kelly. But then I remember, like, Kelly ends up finding out or seeing the video, and then gets pissed at Kyle and finds out that he was screwing around on her. So maybe it was just her watching her own tape and she couldn't live with herself at the beginning. But either way, she hates Christmas. Also, here at DEC, the batting average of the hot sorority girls to the not so hot ones, much better than at whatever the name of the sorority is in the original. Eve is the only one. Everyone else is hot as shit in this movie. And yeah, it's because those are the actresses that were hot at the time. But I have no complaints. Alright, this movie is fucking confusing. There are so many flashbacks in this film, and time jumps back and forth to Billy as a kid, and then more of his history, and then, like I said, him at the psychiatric ward, and then the reveal that it's Agnes. It's so convoluted. It's still entertaining though, but this is ridiculous. Like I said, Kyle, the boyfriend, is there, and they ask, is Megan in her room? And he says, I don't know. And one of the girls says, you don't know? You came in through her room. And he says, it's dark. And then he goes on to tell more of Billy's backstory, conveniently right where they left off when they were talking about it before he got there. And this is about him murdering his mom and lover on Christmas night. And he disfigured, he like stabbed out Agnes's eye. So she's missing an eye, but she got saved and sent to an orphanage. And no one's ever seen her since. But then, and this is one thing I do like about this movie, the brutality of it. Like a lot of the kills in this movie, really, you don't see much. But the way that it's edited and the way that it's done, it just looks brutal. When he kills his mother lover, he takes like some spiky ornament and goes right through his head, and the eyes on it, that looks cool. And then he takes the Christmas lights. Again, like all the kills use some type of Christmassy thing in some way. Strangles his mom and then drags her to the kitchen, and then he repeatedly is smashing her with the rolling pin. And then you got to admit the cookie thing is gnarly as hell. It's a great idea that he takes a cookie cutter and makes, you know, cookies out of her skin and then puts it on a tray and puts it in there and makes Christmas cookies. That's a cool addition. Like, I'm down with that because that's some disturbing shit. So, I mean, that works, and that's some of the more horrific stuff in this movie. But then there's the whole mystery of whether Kyle, you know, possibly could be the killer because of the whole affair thing with Megan or whatever that whole situation is. Then the cops show up, and you see Billy chowing down on the mom cookies. which later become chicken cookies. And they arrest him, and he's been in that asylum ever since for the 15 years. So that flashback is being told by Kyle, and it goes on, like I said, for 5 minutes at least, if not 10 minutes maybe. And he ends the story by saying what happened to Agnes. No one's ever seen her again. They, in all that time, they let him tell that whole story before one of them said, wait, you don't know where is Megan? And then raced into her room to see if she's in there, because he gave the bullshit excuse it's dark in there and he doesn't know if she's in there. He went on that whole story and told the whole life story of Billy and the night of that murder. And nobody stopped. I don't know. I mean, it's dumb shit like that that brings this movie down a lot. There is definitely some pacing issues with this movie, because then instead of Claire's father showing up like he does in the original, her half-sister shows up, and she used to live at the sorority house years ago, and for some reason, Miss Mac, she said I was house mother then, I don't remember you. So there's that whole mystery too. They try to make it seem like she's possibly the killer and or the person calling and all of that. Then they do the same thing with Kyle, like I said. So this whole murder mystery thrown in here for no reason, when we know it's Billy, except for the little reveal that it's Agnes. But all of this did not have to be here one bit. And Megan is still Christmas hating Megan either way, because I guess it was Megan watching her own video in the beginning. It didn't look like her. It still doesn't. It doesn't look like her in that video. Much brighter hair on the video than the girl I saw at the very beginning. But Callie ends up seeing the video that was just open on Megan's laptop this entire time and has to explain everything to her, and Kyle starts saying that this is before you, and that a friend stole his sex tapes and put them online, and she hears the word tapes, plural, and she freaks out. Then they kick him out of the place, and he's pissed, and he's the one in the wrong, and he says, fuck you, all you bitches. And Miss Max starts like kicking him, saying get out of here. But then again, all of this is not good, is the main point I'm trying to make here. This is the total low point of the film, from like the 45-minute mark up until the reveal, basically. Oh, and in the flashback they show Agnes as a kid in the orphanage holding a doll that's missing the eyes, and the half-sister of Claire says, oh, I guess we're still giving presents to Billy, then picks it up and says, this one says to Dak from Billy. And they open it, and it's the doll that's missing the eyes. That's cool. I will say this, though, and this also adds to the pacing and the conversations that take up so much time in this movie, especially in this middle section. They're not likable. I mean, they're all hot, yes. They're hot sorority girls. And some of the dialogue between them early on is fun. And there are some fun lines between them, throughout this. But for the most part, all the characters are very bland. Like, you have no performance like Margot Kidder or Olivia Hussey in the original. And you can't even really look at this movie and compare it to the original, because it is so different. And the tone is probably the biggest difference. The tone of this movie, and like I said, a lot of the camp is so different from that raw, creepy, realistic feeling to the original. And this is just a completely different movie. So to compare it to even something around its time, a few years later, Sorority Row from 2009, which I've done a podcast episode, I think it was, on it. That's a great slasher and a great remake. Totally different for the most part from The House on Sorority Row. But Jess's character in that is hysterical. And the main chick, I forget her name, and Ellie, like, I know their names. I mean, that says a fucking lot right there. You know me with names. But I just can't connect with any of these characters. They're just there to be hot sorority girls that get murdered one by one. And there's really no depth at all. And any attempt at trying to add depth to it, to any of these characters or to the story, just fails miserably for the most part. Everything with her and Kyle and that whole scandal with the sex tape, all of it is written terribly. It's not engaging. It's not interesting. You just want it to fast forward and you want to get through to the good parts of this movie where people get killed. Then it finally starts to pick up a bit, thank God, with them finding Eve's severed head in the car. The not so good looking one, the only one in this movie. They open her car and her head just falls out. It looks whatever, but it's cool. And then they try calling 911 and it's experiencing difficulties. And I do like the fact that Miss Mac is around for a lot longer and experiences this with them than in the original, because she's the second death in that movie. This, she's in like up to the third act. So I don't know. I like having the house mother there, and the fact that, you know, she was in the original as Phil too. That adds to it too. So I'm cool with all of this going forward, basically, except for a lot more stupid shit actually that we end up getting here. Well, that Guardian Miss Max stuff ended real quick. They start debating. Kelly gets through to the police and they say 2 hours. 2 hours before they can get there, because there's like tree pile-ups and stuff on the highway. 2 hours to get to the sorority house when there's been a murder, and they start infighting. Some of them want to leave, including Miss Mac and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. And Kelly and the half-sister of Claire and a few others, they're all saying, we're assuming that our friends are alive and we're sisters. We got to stick together. Then Miss Mac just goes over and hugs Kelly, and it says, we'll send for you when we get the police. And they leave. Then we get a really cool scene. They go out to the car, Miss Mac and Heather Winstead. And they get in the car, and there's some suspense, but it's not that great. And Heather just explodes. Like blood just drapes all over the car window while Mrs. Mac is trying to like clear off one section of it. But Miss Mac backs up in fright and hits like the garage, and an icicle comes down and impales her through her head. That's really cool. And Michelle Trachtenberg's death looks really cool too. Agnes takes like the statue off of the shelf and just chucks it at the back of Michelle Trachtenberg's head, and her head caves in, and then you see like a quick shot of the aftermath. The effects look cool there too. Now there continues to be some entertaining and interesting stuff, and some creepy stuff too. But then there also continues to be there is so much exposition and convoluted story in this movie. My head's spinning. And again, this is a movie that is on mostly in the background every December. So I don't remember the plot to this really, like all the intricacies of it. So Agnes is up in the attic and she drags Kyle, and then the rest of them, they follow him up there for some reason. And Agnes reveals herself. And cool shots of Melissa with the eyes gouged out, and everyone's eyes gouged out. I mean, she has a big fixation, Agnes, on putting plastic bags over people's heads, non-clear ones, and then stabbing the shit out of them and gouging their eyes out. And then cool shot too of the eyes. There's a bunch of the eyes hanging as ornaments from the Christmas tree, and we hear her say throughout this movie, because her mom said it when she was a kid, "You're my family now." And they find Claire's body too, and the sisters are freaking the fuck out. But Kelly says to Agnes, "They're not your family. I'm not your family, and your brother's not here." And she says such a stupid line, "No, my daddy's here." Like, oh, terrible line. And then Billy bursts through the floor. So how much of the killing was being done by Billy and how much was Agnes? Did Billy just get there? I mean, he escaped mad long ago in this movie. So that's what I mean. This movie is so fucking convoluted. I don't know. Like, I still don't know how I feel about this movie. I have fun every time I have it on and I look up at it. And the few times that I've really sat down and watched this movie, I guess I've always had the same type of experience, a very frustrated experience where I enjoy it, but there's just so much dumb stuff in it too, and stuff that doesn't have to be here, or I wish they didn't go in a direction of, that it's a very conflicting movie. But still, it doesn't deserve all the hate that it gets. It is not an awful film in any way. It's like I said, quite enjoyable at times through a lot of it. But god damn, is some of the stupid stuff like unbelievable that like they were able to write these things into the script and was able to make it into a movie. So it's just Kelly and Claire's sister left, and Agnes and Billy, and they fall into the walls and a lot of dumb stuff. And then they end up starting a fire, and supposedly they kill Billy and Agnes. They burn in this fire, but then it keeps going. This movie feels long. It really feels longer than an hour and a half, hour and 35 minutes, wherever the hell it is. But it's not like a 2-hour movie, but it feels almost like a close to 2-hour film with just a lot of the slow pacing. It's very boring at times, but I would be happy if it just ended there. But of course, they bring the bodies to the morgue, the same hospital where Kelly and Claire's sister are at, and then Claire's sister ends up getting offed. She gets killed, and Billy kills a mortician. He pops out of the bag, and that's one thing too. I didn't even really comment on the whole design and look of Billy and Agnes in this movie. I think it looks stupid as shit, both of them. I mean, the yellow look, the jaundice to Billy is so over the top, and the hair on Agnes and all of it just doesn't look good. It's very, very goofy looking. So none of that works. I mean, Billy, the original, is so creepy. The little we see of them, you see way too much of them in this movie. But cool shot when he kills the mortician. He takes like a bone saw or something like that and cuts him, Again, you don't see it. There's no real, on-screen gore in this movie. There's some, after effects and, a few of them, with the icicle through Miss Mac. But not many. But you see the blood spray onto a glass of, I'm guessing, eggnog, just because of how on the nose everything is with the Christmas stuff on every kill. Agnes comes down out of the ceiling in Kelly's room, just happens to know the room number and everything to get there. She climbs down, and Kelly kills Agnes with the defibrillator, whatever. And then Billy climbs down also and chases her out, and she gets her little victorious line that she thinks she's going to win in that moment, but she doesn't. She trips afterwards, and she says, "Merry Christmas, motherfucker," and hits him with a crutch. And then there's people around. Thankfully, I'm actually very grateful of that, because you people know how I hate movies that are set in hospitals and no one's around. This actually has staff here, but they don't do anything. They don't try to stop Billy from attacking her, and she gets stabbed once, but then twirls him over the banister, and he falls onto the Christmas tree and impales himself on the top of it. And then she looks down, and then Dance to the Sugar Plum Fairy plays, and the movie ends. Man, I don't even know what to think about this movie. This is absolutely the definition of a background movie. I don't remember the last time I really sat here and watched it and paid attention to every detail and analyzing it and stuff. And it makes sense, yeah, because I'm fucking talking about it and I'm doing a video on it. But when you do watch it, it is enjoyable, but God, it is so convoluted. It's so frustrating how they could have done things in a totally different way in certain aspects of this movie. The look of Billy is ridiculous. He looks like one of the Simpsons. Agnes, I don't even know how I feel on all that still. Like, I like that her backstory's fleshed out. And I'm fine with her being the killer too. And again, who knows how much each of them were killing. Were they both killing from the beginning? Or did Billy show up later? But that's what I mean. It makes you start questioning, at least for me, all these things. And none of it is written well. It's just an entertaining movie to have on that has a really great over-the-top Christmas feel and aesthetic to it, with a little bit of cool kills. That's this movie in a nutshell. So I could have saved you 50 minutes or whatever the fuck this ends up being. But alright guys, that's part 2, the final part of the holiday episode of Black Christmas and Black Christmas. We are never, Ginger again, sorry, ever talking about Black Christmas 2019. It's not a fucking movie. It's just propaganda. You want your review on it? It's insulting. It's just men-hating propaganda. That's the whole film. It's not subtext. It's not like a theme being explored. It's every line of dialogue. It's the characters' actions and behaviors and their smugness. And it's just a movie made to deliver a fucking man-hating message. And it was personally insulting watching that film. So no, we'll never talk about it any more than just now. So happy holidays, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Hope you're having a good morning, afternoon, or night. Take care. But I'll say right off the bat, this movie gets way too much. Yeah, so... But you have Michelle Trachtenberg from the last episode in about... This is the very, very down... Same with Agnes, his sister daughter. And Megan is hysterical in her room because she... And Megan, you know, that she was screwing around. Come on, you know, it's not that funny. But the guard gets a video of her boyfriend fucking. That's ridiculous. When he kills the lover of his mother. Let me tell you about some of these DAC members. We have, and she is, and I think they use it too, a pretty fucking good, well, Meg, so the girls at DAC, they're all, so Megan is in her room, hysterical. Video of her boyfriend fucking, and then there's just an explosion. That's right, it is Agnes who's killing all of them at the very... So the girls at DAC are all... That's part 2 of the holiday special video.